Tov Beis Tammuz, Shir in Hemshech Tov Reish Ayin Beis, Chelik Aleph, Maimah Divrei Mascho Pasha Maimah Pasha Bamidbar Divrei Mascho Vaya Etzli Omein Omud Tov Samach Daled and Tov Samach Hey. The beginning of Perik Reish Chof Tes. So we saw in the previous chapter, just very briefly, we saw that there were in the pasuk of Yeshaya Novi Kiatzisa Pele, and then we touched it Kiatzisa Pele, Kiatzisa Elef. We saw that Elef was Aleph base, the union of Aleph Bina. And we saw that was the Kavanah Chochmah, how it shot to Bina, how it shot Amshochin Bina. And that's a Mitias Indian Chochmah, which is Gilui. That's a Rashis Gilui of the Esosphere. It's a Kol Indian Chochmah is Indian Yediyah Gilui. And therefore we saw that even in Atzmutza is Borach, Chochmah was the Indian of Kaviyochel, Yediyah's Atzmutza. Well, that's a mocker for the Indian of Yediyah's Atzmutza in the Indian Niroim, ultimately, in the Indian von Eilemes, and ultimately in the Indian von Niroim. And we saw that was that even though Chochmah was Ayin from Bitul Amiti, we saw that it was Oyer, the Ilo Keser, which is a Bitul Mamish Atzmi, a Keser is called Choshech. And we saw that Davke Chochmah in Yoni being Bitul, Bederach Yediyah Davke. And so therefore we saw that Chochmah was the union of the Aleph, it was Limud into Bina ultimately, because its union of being Gilui leads it eventually to, and we saw that the Tzur, the Ois Aleph, was the Ois Yud Lamaila, and then we saw the Kav, that was the Emesa in Chochmah, the Etzem Nekudas Chochmah. Then we saw there was the Kav, which was the union for Midrash Chochmah, and the Kav Atachtin was the union of Yesod, Abba, which is already Nimshach and Mamshich, the Ashpur, into Bina. And the Chiddush of the Pasuk was that all of that is called Pele. It begins with the Pasuk, with the statement Ki Asisa Fele, and then it teaches that Asisa Fele is the union for Allah. So it means that all those madregas in Chochmah, which indicate the rashis ha'is galas klapi mata, and the shefa of all inyanim milamayla lamata, etzem agilu, etzem ha'idiyah, all of that is really Pele. So we asked the Shara, how can anyone that's in of Gilui and Hamshocha and Limud into Bina, which is Atzaga, how can that be called Pele? And so we began with the Musik, and we mentioned very briefly that was due to the fact that in Chochmah is Meir the union of Shem Ma. And we saw that the union from the Chochmah, being as it is Koyach Ma, but the union of Gilui of the Ma, therefore that's what, even though it's a union of Rashis Gilui, or that Ma Sheba Chochmah, well, that's what's Hoifach, Mahapach, as you might say, the union from Chochmah into Pele, despite the fact that it doesn't alter it being the union from Gilui V'Amshach. So that was as it were the paradox of the Kilu Keful Ha'inyonin that we have to deal with. So therefore he says, Ubiya Ha'inyan Yesh Lahatim Tchila Inyan Shem Ma Mahu. What is the Inyan? And the Biur of Shem Ma. What do we mean, Beklal, with the concept of Shem Ma? What we saw earlier, it's the Shem Havaya B'Milui Aleph and Davke. The Hine Klolos Inyan Shem Ma Hu Lechaber Shnei Hafochim. An interesting idea that the Inyan of Shem Ma in Beklolos, its inyan is to bind together and bring into, as it were, a sholem and a chibur hafochim. K'moy chesed u'gvura, oy mashpir u'mekabel. The mashpir u'mekabel hein gamkein k'moy hafochim ze mizeh k'noida. As it well known, that the inyan of mashpir, his inyan is ein oret l'mayla mi'ah mekabel, And the whole inyan of Makabel is not inyanim le'atzmai, no bittul, but Kabbalah bilvad, but the mashpia is kol inyan is the ribui ashefa, what he wants to give out of himself klapei mata. And therefore, those are two inyanim which are hafuchim zeh mizeh. So it comes out of here that the inyan of ma is to be machaber and to join together and bring into one the inyan of hafuchim. So I have to say that the view of it is that not that we bring them into hafuchim and we turn them into, as it were, a dover noisaf or dover acher. For example, we said if we're machaber chesed gvura, and we get a new inyan which is called tiferet. And it's mashmin tanya v'gam rova makaymes. The tiferet is a new midah. Tiferet is a new inyan b'fnei atzmik. K'muvu in Likutei Torah bariyas in Pasha Kedoshim. Oh, there's a whole big beer in the inyan from tiferet. So we have to say that when he says that the inyan of Shem Ma here to be machaber hafochim, he doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that only Shem Ma like a tiferet. Because that's another inyan. There's a shad to the kavim tzoi, there's a shad to oid inyanim. Now what he means is that the inyan from Shem Ma has in itself an ability to bring two hafochim together, that even though they remain somewhat in their own entity, what they are, of instead of being menagdim and puyel b'hafuchiyas zeh l'zeh, they find a way to kilo as it were, act together in a way that there will be mashlim a kavona kloliyas or a dover rotzui biyachad. Or not that they lose their identity. Now, I have a reason why I'm saying that. And he goes on to say now, in other words, the two ways that we can understand the idea of achiva bein hafochim, as I just pointed out. So we have to say that the pua of Shem Ma is in the second oifer. V'sehu, he says, the Odom begimatria Ma. Odom, a mensch, and the word Odom has the same gematria as Ma, v'yadua, the Odom hu p'chinas iskalulas hafochim. The Odom has in itself the interaction and the intertwining, as you might call it, of many opposite inyanim. Although it's not the pshat that we say that the Odom is just one inyan niflo moved on. We call Odom, we call him Metzias Odom, and he's a new midah klolius atzmis which is called Odom. Maybe in certain inyanim. But as we look at him as a Odom, then the mile of the Odom is that he has in himself all of these pratim and all these inyanim, and afu pikein they all find a way of working together in peace, and in not only in peace but in siyuya zeh zeh. And that's the inyan of the ischavasa fochim that there is in the Odom. Not that he's just one Metzias atzmi that's koilo b'derekilu klolius atzmi is at kol pratim. He's got all the pratim b'toichoi. That's what's mashma from what he brings now from the Rambam. It's a tova yedua, but if you study it carefully, look at it.
What are the hafachim? Ahava yira?
Yeah, not only ahava yira. We'll soon see. We'll soon see what he means. Yeah, ahava yira. We can see he has in himself in yonim where he can exercise strictness, or he can exercise chesed, or he can exercise all sorts of inyonim, and all of them add to a what you might call a given goal, without necessarily cancelling one the other. So he says, like the Kamishkos Rambam, Shmina Prochim Shaloi. But that's well known, the famous Hakdoma that the Rambam wrote to the Pirkei Avos. That's another Hakdoma. He wrote a Hakdoma to the whole Klolos Pirush HaMishnayos that he wrote. That's called the Hakdoma to the Pirush HaMishnayos. But he also wrote a more specific, long introduction to his Pirush on the Pirkei Avos. And that's called the Shmina Prochim. It's divided into like 8 main chapters. So over there he writes, so a hefresh bein ha'odom l'chol ha'balei chayim. I'm sorry, now I'm getting myself confused here. You do the Adam, who can such colors of him. Shizu I fresh pain or Adam lako habarichai. Who can wish koso Rambam, Bashmina Prochim Shaloi, the Kol Anim Toim, Yesh Lehem Poal Echad, Oi Peish Piorim. Avu Adam, Mishtane Lakama Peulois. Harei Adam Kolul Mikama Hafochim. A commission is boil liu perekuf samach. Well, so he brings over there that we find that it's brought down that certain animals are considered. He says the oirev is considered an achzori, and he brings over there the Rambam that the nesher is considered a rachmoni, and he brings over there other animals that are considered toirofim with the achzorim beyoyser. And he brings out certain reptiles, a kach, and certain birds, more mitadach. What's it called over there? Rashi brings it the chasido, chasedasim, ktaneho, and so weiter. That she does also to chasodim, albeit with her own, but at least it's bedereches. Edefa, the Rambam bases himself on that we see that animals have midas, but they don't have different midas within it, and it causes them to do different, almost completely opposite types of pu'ulas, which all come from the one being. They can do only one pa'al. That's their inyan ikri, and they're not mishtana. Ve'ilu, what he tells us over there is that the Adam, as in so different inyanim hafochim, and sometimes he does that way, and sometimes he does that way. Latevus ayin masuya, and he can also sometimes act in a way that they interact or they join together, and sometimes they use a miktas mizeh, and sometimes a miktas mizeh. But the shleimus ayin and the Adam is that Lavdavki always has to use a miktas of this and a miktas of that. Sometimes he does a po'ol sholem or a po'ol sholem, but even a fochi. That's what the situation is doirish, and Ali Deisa is going to achieve a tuiva and a matorah amit is Ali Deisa. If it's the same Adam, the Berega he does that, on Berega Hasheni, which might be hours later, he'll do an Einian Hofuk Mizeh. That's by the Balachayim Nisht Lovanimta. So that was the Rambam and the Commissioner's bully, Perikuf Samuel. Well, that's the famous chapter in Ein Bez on. This whole thing is one of the famous chapters. You remember we learned over there about Ach, Odom Kodman, the whole Inif and Ach, and there's Kuf Samul Zayin and Kuf Samul Ches, and there's a whole big section of about all the Inyonim Beneget to Ach. So we see that the Ach is a tzir of two shamas or names, Odom and Kadmai. We saw that the Inif and Kadmai that was in the Ein Seif, how this was now Tzimtzum. But even though here it's already after the Tzimtzum, but again, like Gilui, he said there's not really any Shinui in the Etzim Hamshocha Adain So. The Ika changes in this Shem Odom. So all the Inyanim how they were Lifnei Tzimtzum were all just Inif from Pshitas, the Havshota Afilo Loi Bechinas Matthias Befal. And that was all in the Sfiras HaGenuzah, and all readers. Ve'ilu after the Tzimtzum, in Odom, Kadman, we can't say that they're already there, but they're all Klulim and Achodim Mufshotim together, that they appear to be one, but really they are Ribui Protim, which are all Miskalalim, literally Mispashtim, Mufshotim, from their own Matthias Atzmi, Mitzad Iskalas in the Kloliv Atzmi of Of Al-Chaponim, they're already there. Ve'ilu Koidem Tzimtzum, it was only what we call Efshorius Amatzias Behechlet. And here it's also Efshorius Amatzias. The emes is, but that's only the Gabi Lamatim Mimeno. It will not be Behechletius. Because Behechletius is already a Ainim from the Ezish Ugedish Amatzias. Of Al-Chaponim, what he makes that all the Inyanim are there in Ach. They're all there, and they're all Klulim or Betalim in the Etzem Madrega of Kadmai. Edifar, he got onto this whole idea that Odom was a makeup of many protim biyachad, and that all the protim are Klulim, and the amitis in of an Odom, like we saw, is that when all the protim are there, and after became they're not say so one day one the other. No mitzad the mile of Adam, he's out to be mishtamish bekulam in an even that he deals with them even shall beetle le kavana nidreshes bekol inyan. And that's what the Rambam is marich of there, one of the whole inyanim in Pirkei Avos. The meaning for Aish Chosid, what he calls over there, he says Midas Atzilus. The Rambam says that a Chosid is also as asot mensch, that he's able to do all sorts of different inyanim, and he's able to be poil, pal, echad, or pal, sheni. But he said, Akol lefi ha shikul ha miti b'tevus hadova, b'tevus haratzui hadova. All I read is what he's masbel the inyan of Aish Chosid, because that's the inyan how he's masbel that the inyan from Pirkei Avos is Midas Chasidus. With the whole region. That's how he gets over there to this whole inyan. So we see Lefisa that the inyan of Adam is that all the inyanim are there, and they're even there in their identity, but they're all able to act in a way that they are not misnagin and not hafuchim zela, even though begolui they look to be that way. Yeah? And even though he might use one in that particular cow, so we think, oh, he's that he works in that way. So the Rambam said that if he's an Amos of Chosid, he doesn't necessarily always work in that way. No, he can work in an opposite way if that's what is nidrush according to the Amos of Shikul HaKodesh, what should be.
Doesn't the Rebbe Rashab explain in another place? I remember we learned in the yeshiva that this inyan of being this kav or this kav is the perfection of that is Avraham Avinu was ish chesed. Maybe it was matzavahim. He was.
That's at the beginning. That's at the beginning of Kunshas Samaya. Yeah. So over there he deals with the whole inyan that he was able to use Gevura. But over there, to a certain extent, you're right. You have a point. Because ultimately we're going to get back, how does this all work? How is the Adam able to be like that? Because he hasn't himself the Inyan from Ma. And over there in Perik Base in Gimel, because it's a Maya. Yeah, that's what he says. That the Inyan is due to the Ashpah of the Moichin. Where does the Inyan of the Moichin and all his midas come out after through Moichin, then he's able to be Mechavan them in different ways. In other words, that if he just acts on a midah toivo, then that's called a midas behemias. That's what he writes over there. Even if he acts mamish good to other people, but he does it not mitzad the shlitas amoichin, then he calls that a midah behemias. What to a certain extent,
Adam behemah.
Yeah, it's got a certain. Over there, he's talking more about the etam shlita of the moichin. Here we're talking about the koyach of Shema to be kilu mechaber, or enochanami, kulam oilim bekona echad. There is a certain similarity in the beer. Yeah. Amam says that Rabbi Baruch Adam megematria ma. Yeah, the meaning the mensch in his etzem gematria is ma. The inyan Shema hu la'asis is kalalas v'is chabras ha afochim. Over here the beer is not to make a whole new midah and a whole new metzias out of the afochim. Over in the afochim gufa to find a way that they will work together to bring to the proper inyan. V'zeu gam kein in milgav ihu shem ma dehiu oirach atzilim. And now we go back to the Lashon that we bought in Pascal Yahu, that he brings a whole series of statements about the spheres, about how they are, and then he says that that the chesed dorei yamina, gvura dorei smaller, and tivaras gufa, neitzav v'hei, train sheiken. Then he brings a Lashon where he says that that's the inyan from Kafta, the tefillin he brings. He says the ihu shem ma, the ihu oirach ha'atzilas. I'm sorry, milgav ihu shema. That the pnimis of all that is the shema, the innovating, the bifnim mikosa is the shema. And what is that? He said that is the way, the derech klodi of atzil. V'hainu b'chinas oir hakav sho'oisa ais kalas be'esas filas d'atzil. Ukamaima antu de kosheloina umeyachid loin. Now over there in the Posik Aliyahu, he talks about the cow. He says the beiro, the whole thing, he brings the Lashenas indicating the cow. And then he says that what is the pu'ula in Atzilas of the cow? He says that it's Makasheloina umiyachid loin, that it's literally binds between all the 10 spheres, and he also brings them to a certain yichud zeh. In other words, from that it follows that the kav, albeit he's only a kav metzumtzam, and a kav means adova metzumtzam lemadai. Le'ido kisa, there's an inyan in the kav of kloliyas ve'atzmiyas, what he's able to cause a bittul b'shari asfiras, but even that they are able to be mishkasha and even mishyachid, even to join together in a certain yichud. But from that we see, and that's the lashon oirach. What oirach means, like a way of. It means the general way. That's the general mahalach, to use the word of oirach, of the inyan of Atzilus. But from that we see that even though the covers a specific hamshocha b'derech tzimtzum miya oir shalach ne'atzimtzum, nonetheless he's a kloli adayin legabi kol spheres, that he's able to be called the oirach, the general way of the whole inyan of Atzilus. So we find out that Rebbe is going to be masbid that with the famous moshe from the Mittler Rebbe in the Bir Azor. Well, this is brought in many places. So he says, Tehine, Daes Spheres, Eimba Madregis Mudolis, Mzeh Mizeh, Vein Hafochim Zeh Mizeh. They're mamish, even Hafochim, Chesed Ugvura, even in Yonim like Neitzach Vahoid, having themselves certain Hafochim. He said, Va'akav, Umiyached Umechaber. He brings them to a ability to act in a way that they unite one with the other, and they mashpia in a united and joined way.
And the kav is something different from the spheres? The kav is something different from the spheres?
Oh yeah, the kav is different from the spheres. We're going to see that the kav, the sphere is better markedim. That's what the spheres are, b'yemen. That's what the spheres are kelim. We're talking about the oiros, which are mishlavish in the kelim, and the kav is a oir kloli, which is kilo the oir, which is miyached and mechaber, all these different amshachas. He said, "Tehine akav b'klal nikra oir chatzir," as we just noticed. Ochameshkasu b'birei hazoya pashu b'isla b'mayma hazoya al posik ki shorim darchei Hashem. The Birei Hazeh over there brings a whole maima of the Zoya of this posuk. Shorim Darchei Hashem. It's at the end of which chapter is it? Shorim Darchei Hashem. Tzadikim Yelchu Bom Poishim Yikoshlu Bom.
Shabbos Shuvah.
Yeah, משהו כזה, בנו אישה יצא פוסק, yep, אין נכון, so from that it follows that the Zohar Kodesh is makshir. How can you say the word derech in Inyonim of the Eibush? What a derech indicates a way which is leading somewhere. I mean, the Indian of Elakus is l'gamri l'mayla mi derech. What's short to say b'klau derech in Elakus? And then he said, what's a taish Yosha? Would that imply that there's maybe drochim which are not Yosha? I mean, what would that be? What's the b'klau, the usage of such Inyonim? And then later on, the Zohar says, it's the Dachim Drochim Avay Raisa, and that Cholila, somebody who's not Shema, in Yonim the way it should be, he can even have Kisholin in Yonim or Raisa, and he can be Mi'avis the Kavona against Arichas over there in the Zohar Kodesh. So the Mittler Rebbe Kedarach, he goes back to the Shorish Kol Hain Yonim, and he says that the mocker of describing Derech in Elakus is the Kav. That's the Efshot is that we can talk about, and that's due to the inyan of the Tzimtzum, and the Kav is the first Gilui Eloki Le'achrei the Tzimtzum. And the Tzimtzum was a Mochen Ponu, and he talks about the Rishimu, the whole, what you might call, picture is described very briefly over there by the Mittler Rebbe. So he says, Kach, Yishorim Darchei Avaya, Da'kav U Kamoshul Derech Hagodel Hanimshek Me'erein Tzeiber, who Derech, a klol is, and he compares it to a main way, like in a Medina, that's what you might call the main road, the Derech HaMelech. Hanimshek Me'erein Tzeiber, who Yesh Drochim Ketanim, And there are smaller ways, Shuam Shocher Lekol Sfira Befrat. And he's got a whole mashal there, 2 mashalim. And if I'm not mistaken, the Rebbe's got in a place where the Rebbe is mechalik between the 2 mashalim. What is that? Mashal Be'ika Mashmiya, what's the other one? Mashmiya. First one was about the mashal of the ways, or the roads. And then he brings a mashal from a tzina, from a river. That a river, you can't get into the kelim. First of all, you have to take like an irrigation channel from the river. But generally, the way it's done is that they take a general channel, and then from that they take off minor channels into different parts of the fields, and for different plants and different things that they've got. So we see there are 2 mashalim over there. The truth is, and here the Rebbe is he's kilo mashalev the two mashalim biyahad. I will domani that there is a chiluk board. What is the chiluk the 2? You know. Okay, the Isa Beit Chaim, Dab Shochas Akav, whom you ain't safe Shlifnea Atimtum. In other words, the cow is Davke Nimshach, or Boikeya the Timtum. It's the Amshach of the Shlifnea Timtum comes back, but it's Nimshach Alidei, the Koyach of the Timtum, which is the Rishimu, and that causes a Hagbola and a Mailomata Bizdin of Gvul, Kipshuta in the cow. And so, but the etzem pnimius of the cow is there in social ifnaya. Yeah, achimtum. But who kein tziner animshach me'erein. So, you know, he uses the word previous in drochim, now he says tziner. Animshach me'erein. Okamoi tziner hamakaleach mayim me'anahal. It brings the water into the field, from the field. The me'anaha atzmei iya shalam lemales kelim. The ultimate purpose is to reach buckets and then pour the buckets on the nowadays there are probably other ways of doing it. If you try to fill your kelim from the nahar, you just get swept away with the kelim. Therefore, kiim alidei atziner shebi ovroi b'shetach ha'oretz harihu mamale hakelim hanimtoim sfivoi. How does he do that? Who alidei tzinoides ktanim shenimshochim lechol kli befrat. In other words, that you got this main channel or tzinoir, and then you got these smaller tzinoides that they lead to, and that's where the kelim come into. The people hold kelim and they fill them, and then they take them and put them onto the plants. Kol chadre for minyone. We see that the nimshal for the kelim, these kelim kipshuti stand and wait for the water, but between the in and the nahar, well, that's the urshel of neatimtzah, that's the etzem oil, which is sheitav hakel. You have this in of a tzina kloliyas, and then you have tzinoidas proteum, and then you have kelim. Well, for that is much better. The kav is albeit a kav metzumtzah, and he's already got himself the minyan for gvul ultimately, and he's the inner for malamat with all those in there. Well, so legabi each sfira b'meyuhod, he is a dayin kloli v'atzmi ha'v'yesa than the etzem hamaya in that particular sfira, which is kli. Or kamoikein, he says, who betugma b'finas akav. Sheish tzinoides protim. Sheinam shochas oides protim.
The kav is just like the or in the Tzimtzum.
Yeah, but it's not mamish there.
The water, the same water that comes to the river is going to the the same water.
The pnimis of the kav is the Urshel Neatzimtzum. But Bugolo is not the Urshel Neatzimtzum. Because otherwise I haven't achieved anything.
When it says it's shinur, he says the kav is the sinor, it's the pipe, but it's not the water that goes in the pipe.
Yeah. No. We mean the water in the pipe. And the pipe is just the timtum. The pipe is just the quirk. That's the quirk which comes from
it's the same water that's in the water in the river.
Yeah, it's the same water, but it's metumtam, meaning that it's undergone a big change. In other words, it previously wasn't shy beklal to be mamshichet even towards protim. Now it is. If I don't know, that was always said before in Ach, that even though Ach hasn't itself, the primordialness of the Ur HaKadmain, well, we've already got the details there in a real way. Mashiach in the Ur Lefnei didn't have that beklal. You follow? Amamele, The only thing we're trying to stress is that the etzem mocker of the kav is the Yeshua Neatzim. And there are certain nafkiminas, which albeit in our inyan not so much, but there are certain nafkiminas like other inyan. Amamel, he said, "Hu alidei atzornos haktanim shenimshochim lekol pratu." וכמו כן, יש בדוגמה בבחינת הקו, שיש צינורס פרוטיים, שהן המשוכס אורס פרוטיים. וכמו אור החוכמה, נמשך בצינור מיוחד, ואור הבינה בצינור מיוחד. In other words, that the kav is a inin klali adayin. He doesn't have in himself chokma b'miyuchad and bina b'miyuchad. Today that he should be mashpia into chokma b'miyuchad or bina b'miyuchad, he's got to take a further kav metzumtzum mimeno. Well, from that we see that the kav has got in himself these inyonim, yesh lo atam, but there's still even for klolos adayin. Now we're going to have to discuss that a little bit more. Exactly what is the nature of that type of presence of all the inyonim in the kav.
But I thought we were in the middle of proving that Chochmah is the Inyan of the Kav, is an Inyan Klali, the Orach Hatzilus.
No, that's what we're saying. There is an effect of Inyan Klali.
The Kav is not Chochmah, not Bina.
That's right. And that's why it's Orach Hatzilus, it's the general cloud. And from it we take off Protistika Hamshachas. We take from the cloud Protistika Hamshachas. What we try to point out when we get to Ach, and the Kavazuli Agili from Ach, is that all the protim are there, but they're not begolui als protim. We're going to see a little bit further along. You'll say exactly how that works. And what the tzinoros protim are, that they take, as it were, that prat that is there in the kav, but it's even mufshat adain in the kav, and they specificize it and bring it over into the sphere. You follow? That's the Bir Hador. וכמו he says, it appears over there in the beer, in the beer Yazaya, that Shinoiris Protim ein Mekoirei ha'oiros. In other words, you can't call the kav Mekoirei ha'oiros, in the sense of what do we mean by Mekoirei ha'oiros? Oiros, in the simple sense, means the oiros of how they already malubish in the kelim. That's when we say oiros in Atzilis, we mean the oiros which are already malubish in the kelim. So there's a state in the oir, how it's not yet malubish in the keli, and it's a form of a mocker, legabi that oir which is about to go into the kelim. So himself he said that already in the proteus of that oil, which has already been, as it were, set aside, that's going to be the proteus of that oil, there's still even a gavoya yoter, where it's not mamish shy to slapshas, but it's already magule, it's already got a miskale, or even because of that it is going to be shy. But ilu the kav is still a Inyan Klali v'atzmi, where all the protim are there, but they're not there in any real recognizable oifen, one from the other. And that's what he says, that over there it would appear that they are a mocker of the Uros. V'hein l'mayla adayin mislapshas pekelim. Because if it was slapshas pekelim, then l'chorah, you could just go directly into the keli. Why do you need this extra tzinoah? But that's mashma, that the extra tzinoah is not actually the entering into the kelim, it's the bringing of a water or of a amshocha from this closed tzinoah, which will eventually be able to enter that keli, but it's still a maila miyah keli. You have a v'lachera b'pashtus, the riot to that is that they obviously have some sort of controlling inyan on that tzinoah prati, which opens it and shuts it when you get to the kelim. Because if it were just to flow, kolas man via tzinoah haklali, then it would obviously be too much for the keli. So therefore, that's on that basis that it's mashmin the loshen of the Mittler Rebbe over there. If you look, what he's saying is that that's what the Rebbe is going to quote in a minute, that there are 3 kilo states in oil, 3 madrigas or matzovim. There's a matzah the oil how it's mamish kloli mudol legamri mi liyesh mocher elazin proti. Then there's even a mocher which is already shy too but it's still only a mocker. And then there's the etzem entry into the kli. The etzem is slabshes in the kli, but that's another bechina or matzav in the oil. So these scenarios, according to the hezbollah here, it's going to be a little bit complicated to give another hezbollah. Over this hezbollah, that seems that the middle point, or that middle aspect of the oiros, well, that's the tzina haprati. That's what we're aiming at to say here. Hein mokia oiros, pirush, that they are the mokia of that oir miyuchad, out still l'mayla dayan mislapshas bekelim. Ve'acharach yam shocha v'slapshas v'yakelim, shezehu oi tzimtum. That's a further tzimtum. In other words, that what we're saying is that the oil turns out of the main pipeline to go towards the keli. It undergoes a tzimtzum of the actual entering into the keli. Yeah, that's kilo a tzimtzum noisa. That's kilo noch a But Tomid nimshach ashefa me mikoirei oireis ela oireis ume oireis ela keli. Now here mikoirei oireis, he means the tzina hagodol. And his oiros, he means stam, but it means what he just called mokeh oiros, haprati, and then the oiros ela kelim. Those oiros, they eventually go down and enter the kelim. V'ayim asher nisbor li'il perek koftes, sheyesh gimel madreges be'oiros. Like we were just quoting, ha'ale, ha'oir k'moishu hu bim koiroi terem shemizgale. So here, we're touching that on the calf. In other words, the way it is inside the calf is describable as terem yizgale. It hasn't really come out into any form of giloi. Habeis k'moishu mizgale mim koiroi, v'agimel k'moishu mislavish bea kelim. So Lufi, this picture that we have here, well, that Indian of the oiros terem shenizgalu, before there's been any gilu in the oiros, well, we're still talking the calf. That's the way they are inside the cow. Va'ilu, right at the beginning of the Hemshech, it looks slightly different. Va'amashin is boliyu perek koftes, sheish gimel madreges boireis, ha'alef ha'oyer k'moshehu bimkoire term shemizgal, base v'li'iyu perek lamed alef, shamadrega ha'beis hi a cow. Over there it appears that the madrega base is the cow, and the madrega gimel is the tzina haprati, and the amshoch into the kelim is kilo like one Indian over there. He said, "Olofia mavua kan yesh loima that madrega base zehu shezehu atzinoides protim anim shochim mina cow." So here we see an interesting Indian that the Rebbe said that it all depends, vimaretos. Was it over there such a kareta? So over here such a. In other words, that over there. He was talking more about the etzem moke of the cow, how it is in the area and such like. Because over there, in the beginning of the Hemshech, he talks about the Yesses Firas HaGanuz. And that's the tremendous chiddush of the whole first chelik of the Ayin base. Even though we're still in the first chelik, but that's one of the big moves at the beginning of the whole Hemshech, that you've got the Yesses Firas HaGanuz. It's not like Hamavoy in Parsha Noach, in Torah Oyer, that they are Bo'ilum HaKudim, and they're after the Tzimtzum. No, the Ika Indian of the Esses Firas HaGanuz is Lifnei HaTzimtzum. So over there, the Rebbe says the emes of Mokeh of the Oiros in the Esses Firas HaGanuz is Lifnei HaTzimtzum. And then he said the next Madrega is the cow. And what he says over there is that in the emes is that in the cow they already come into Protim. Or what he calls over there Protim Atzmiyim. And that's what he brings, the famous Lashon at the Pardes. But the Pardes says that the kav is a suim in the kulis. And how do you make a kav? Really, a kav is like a whole series of dots, one following the other. And he says that the Indian of the kav is how all the spheres are really there, but they're in an oif and achmias. Remember, they're like one kav because really they're already gilui of the spheres, but achmiusa.
What's that shak in the kudus?
No, that's what he says, that the spheres are already misgathered from the Esses Firas HaGanuz. The Esses Firas HaGanuz are Lifnei HaTzimtzum. After the Tzimtzum is the Kav. In the Kav, those Esses Firas HaGanuz are already misgathered in a protis dike kilomatzes.
In kudus?
Yeah, but he said they're called etzem dike nekudas, or etzem dike giluim, which is like a nekuda. And the Kav is like joining together all those Nakudas. And then he says there's another Madrega, that's the oil which is Nimsha from the Kav into the Harikot, into the Spirit. So over there he seems to make that all one Indian. The Tzinoros Akitanim and the actual entry into the Kegli, so that's like all one Indian. Look at me the way it is in the Kav. Here he's making that for two Indian. So he's making the Tzinoros Proti one Indian, and he's making a third Indian, how it's killed Mitzamtzei Mamish into the Kli.
Every Indian you can make 3 Indians of.
Huh?
From every Indian you can make 3 Indians.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it just depends, where you put the emphasis, as it were.
Rosh Tov Sof.
Yeah, it just depends. Wie say, how do you say it? Yeah, we question to say, huh? How what?
It's a Valmarcus this week.
Well, he talks about the Tzinoros Proti?
No, 3, level of 3.
Have?
The level of 3.
3s. Oh, yeah. Also upon him, so the Rebbe says that's the way it is over there. Yeah, and here we're talking this way. Vakav b'klal, he says, who ha'oirek ha'atzilus. V'hainu b'chinas haderech v'atzina hagodem. Shuhu l'mayla adayim b'chinas ischalkus eres proti. I mean, that fits in with what's written over there anyway. It is already protim in a way, but protim atzmiyim. And over here, what's what we're saying also. And why is that? Well, that's a great Indian of the Kav. There's the one on the famous the tzir that's made, that the Kav is dovuk be'igul hagodel l'mayla avo enu dovuk bidl hagodel l'mata. That's why he's a Kav. Because if he were dovuk from both sides, then he would just be nikkel tzarich in the igul hagodel.
What'd you say? If it was Dovuk and Shnehem, what would it be?
What I said, you got the eagle hagodel, and the Kav is nimsha from the eagle, but he's not nimsha to the other aspect of the eagle. He's only nimsha mia eagle to toich.
But if it was, then
if he was nimsha to the other side, then he'd be just nickel in the eagle. So, Amami says the Rebbe, Ashagam shen is boili yeah, but Alkain, ein boy adayin is chalkus hoireis, and that fits in more or less with what's written over there. Because what he says is those nakudas are nakudas atzmiyim she'ein adayin shayim legilui. Yeah, so therefore it fits in. It's just like you said. It just depends how you come at it. Lefishu dog. Yeah, we Alkain ein boy is chalkus hoireis. V'agam shen is boili yul sham shakavu pidus iskalas haprotim. Oh. That's what we were my Mia Esther feels like it knows it. The Kavasui Mene Kudes, yeah. It'll come to us that they are really there. So he's in his Borsham, the Bakav Meir, but he is Pshitas to Esther feels like it knows. Really, the Esther feels like it knows have come, but they're miut from the Tim. That's what he said. They don't come, but they're a dill from the Tim. They become, but they're a miut. And the dill in the Tim is like the Ura Chloli, and not that's a whole big riches of it. They come in as a oifen, that they are pshitas atayin, they have in themselves that pshitas of the Esther Spheres Haganuzah. But often as Firashaboy, heim beginners blima. And then he makes up the whole series of Lashonas. But there's a from the Esther Spheres Haganuzah, and there's Esther Spheres blima, and there's another Lashon in the Sefer HaYetzirah. Blima fits in nicely, that it is already an identity, a ma as it were, but it's blima. Hagam v'gam sheyesh boy. Oh, and here he comes with another Indian. Or does a mamish bomba? V'gam yesh boy miroshim ha'ayin seif or ayin seif. The conversion is bo liyel perikof. So here one at a time, got it. You got Perikov Tes, and you got Perik Lamed, Perikov Tes and Lamed are not the same. Then you got Perik Lamed Aleph, now you got Perikov Ches. What does he say over there in Perikov Ches? Over there, the Rebbe says, Mamish, Atova Nifla, Loi Nimtza, Ahave Mekimus, Indian Ketzeh. The Rebbe says over there that when we say that there's a Roshimu, from the Tzimtzum, the Kaviyochel, the Ein Sefer was Koidematim, leaves over Aroshim, that's really in two Eifanim. it's not just the Nakuda of the Rishimu, but the Rishimu is a Nakuda Gvuliyas, Achmis, that he remains in the Chololi Shalela, in the Tzimtzum, and that's the Mocher, the Kelim, the Mocher, the Koach HaGvul, another. The Rebbe said there's also, so there's a Rishim of the Ein Sof. In other words, that just like Utaina, that Ein Dover is a Mistalik Legamre, how's it in the Lashon? Ein Dover is a Salim or Mistalik Legamre, Ein Dover is a Gedusha, how's it in the Lashon? Ein Dover is a Gedusha, is a Mistalik Legamre, the Salim Legamre, forgot the Lashon. You remember that's all in, and the Beis Hamikdash still remains, but all Arich is in. That's the Givon Shoit, after mention something, the Nitzchis of the Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, says the Rebbe pinked, as if you want to tiny, that the Shel Tzimtzum was coiled in itself. The Agvul, it was Bolua, it was bottle again with Techa Ahiraplikvu. And so there's a ration of that left over, the Rishimo. We have to say that the Ahiraplikvu, that was the Amitis Agilu, that was the Amitis Hashlita, as you might say, Koidem HaTzimtzum. And there's also a ration from that. If Ein Dov Shekavushan Neakar Mim Kaimel again, right? Remember the Ein Sof, which was Begoli, also is a ration. And on the contrary, it's more the emphasis of Musik of Rishim than the Nakuda, the Rishima, because the Nakuda, the Rishima doesn't change. He's just what he is, and the Ohr goes away, and he just remains there. Because he was always what he is, just a Nakuda Atzmis of Gvul. I say, take away the Bli Gvul, he's there. Hello, they said, here I am. That's a Rishimo. Ma'ashekin the Eden of a Rishim of the Ein Sof means that the Ein Sof Amiti of that Ur, which is the Mamale Kolam Matziyas, well, that goes away. It also leaves, as it were, a Rishim. And he says, well, that Rishim is Nimshach at the Kav. And that's a Pnimis at the Kav, that even though he's a Kav Mekutzer, a Kav Metzumtzum, of a Pnimis Yelesha at the Rishim. And everywhere he's got this ability, and Mekasheloin, and Meyachaloin, everywhere he goes, he does two inyanim. First of all, he brings as it were, a specific inyan with him, and he leads eventually to Etzem, inyan Gilui HaGvul, Mitzati Yoeres, and at the same time, he does all sorts of inyanim, which are almost hafuchim mizeh. And he does Mischabers and Iskalalas, all these inyanim. So, you can't have a cake and eat a tulcha. We couldn't say beide inyanim mamish, so you can answer me to the shleimus ha'atzmus. Oh, it's the shleimus ha'atzmus of behillim, as it were. Now, this is sicher that it's all mitzad the shleimus ha'atzmus. He says, but Golui, that's mitzad the roishim of the Ur Ein Sof, how it was Ur Ein Sof, not the roishim of the rishim. In him, so there's shnei inyanim. There's a rishimu and there's a roishim. That's not Nakudas HaRoshim. A third thing, not Nakudas HaRoshimu, nor Nakudas HaRoshim. That's another answer. That's in from Chofas Timur, the beginning of the whole in and out to Ati. And the Rebbe's got a whole big, huge footnote at the end of the Echotza. So I think it's the biggest footnote from the Rebbe. It's a footnote about this big, a whole page. The Rebbe's got on the Nakudas HaRoshim. That's another answer. There's Rishima and the Nakudas HaRoshim. They got to do with the Kelim. And then the Sinifan Rishim Ha'Ein Sof. Rishim Ha'Ein Sof. And this is Meir B'Pnimis HaKav. Amir said the Rebbe, Mitzad that in him. V'gam yesh boi mi Rishim Ha'Ein Sof. I've even got that Rishim. Yeah, from the Ein Sof. And therefore anything which is in the Kav is to a certain extent bottled in the Ein Sof like it was before. The only thing that the Tzimtzum is made, that it's like a Nakuda now. Or it's a Nakuda which is cold inside that oil. And therefore it remains a Nakuda Atzmi, but it's also not an express Nakuda Adayim. Because it's still inside that Ein Sof. It's still, as it were, in the atmosphere of the Ein Sof, a bottle to it, and therefore the Nakudas are there, but the Nakudas Atzmiyim. And in order to get to the inyan of oilers, which are going to be mamshich, into the kelim mamish, then you have to have these tzinoidas ketan. Therefore, says the Rebbe, Rafi Zeh Kuntois, the behechreya, where are we? Yeah, v'zesh kosu, babirei azoya, the behechreya, who, she'iyah tzinoidas ketanim, shal yodam nim shachamayim biyah kelim. That's a hechreya, that there has to be that. the mi'achinoya הגודל, הגם שזהו צמצום לגבי הנהר, מכל מוחים מפני שהמשכוסי הוא מהנהר, אי אפשר שיומשך ממנו בהכלים. In other words, since it comes from the Ein Sof שלפני הצמצום. And בתוכו, there's an aeration from that Ein Sof. שבלפני הצמצום. therefore, said the Rebbe, it's אי אפשר, you can't have בפויל, the עצם עניין הזה, that oil being nimshar into the kelim, because otherwise the kelim would just be betelim legabitzer. And therefore, therefore you have to have a further tzinoer, another kav, as it were, a kav koton, a tzinoer koton odyoter, but that brings it, and according to the bio here, even in Akura, a further, as it were, tzimtzum, istamtzumas, mamish into the kelim. V'adugma mizeh, ubivchinas hakav, שהוא הצינור הנמשך מאין סוף שלפני הצמצום כמו שכתוב בעת חיים, הרי הוא בבחינת פשיטות עדיין. Even though it's got tzinoir, nekudas, and even though it's made up of nekudas, but it's still this inyan of pshitas adayin, and therefore it's impossible for it to be a moker to ve'ei efshar ha'kelim des הספירות לקבל האור מהקו עצמי כי אם מהצינוירס פרוטים שאין מקורי האוירויס ועל כן הקו בכלל עושה בבחינת איסקללוס הספירות. And therefore the Rebbe said, since it's got in itself of this inyan of the Roshim of the Ein Sof, and it's got this Atzmias, and therefore, on the one hand, it eventually gives off Kelim Ketanim, or rather Stinoyas Ketanim, which eventually lead to Amshocha in the Kelim. Actually, it eventually, as it were, is responsible for that. Obviously, on the other hand, there's a Inin in the Kelim, this Atzmias, Pshita Shaboy, Shemitzad HaRoshim Shel Ein Sof. And Mamela, therefore, he does Inin, as it were, almost hofki, that he's also goyim, and he brings about the alkain. He says akav beklal oisa bechinas iskalalas asfiras. He said, but so in a milgav pnimius. If we go into the inner of Atzilus, the pnimius of Atzilus, iu shema, iu oirich Atzilus, dainu bechinas akav beklal. So the Lefizah comes is that the inyan of ma is the kav. Eishata, we're touching that this ma, which is great, the inyan of the pnimius of Atzilus is ayin of niskalas of bitul, yichud kolayin on him. Well, that's only the inyan of the milgov. That's as it were the pnimius of Atzilus, and it's mashma the pnimius of the kav. And what is that? Well, that's this Rishon of the Ein Sof. So we have to say that that's a inyan from Bittul Atzmi. What its whole inyan is Bittul Me'anit, Mitzadi. In other words, at the emerson inyan of that how it was Kedem HaTzimtzum, its inyan was all Gilui Ein Sof. It didn't really know anything about Makablim. It didn't know that there was even eventually going to be Makablim. In a way. Maybe it did, but Atzmi. But even Masuyam, it's hard to say it did, because it's all in his own Gilead Etzem. And we have to say that Ma, it's got itself two inyan. The Mitzad Echad, Ma, it's got that inyan of the Ein Sof Lefnei Atzimtzum. Imamir it's in as Bittul Gomo, that you might call Bittul Atzmi only to the Moya. And the Bittul is a Bittul which doesn't have any kunsim whatsoever. However, we have to say that since so it's the pnimius of the kav, that there's a kavanah in the kav. The kavanah is eventually to get to Ohilamas Biyah. That's ultimately the purpose of it, and ultimately to get to what is the ultimate uftu, the whole bria to reach Olam Hazeh, Latachtin Kemavu and Tanim Perek Lamed Vav, that ain't a kavanah b'Olam Hazeh Yoinim. But the kavanah is talking there about that. And then we have to say that the inyan from the kav, that inyan that the kav is ma, is like two inyanim. That since its inyan is bittul, like the earth of Neatimtum, and it's bittul, and it says its whole inyan is only gilei hamoya, but it comes down into Atzilus, but even Kozeh in a certain way, but it uses that type of bittul to do things which are like part of the kavanah almost. We're going to soon see in a second that it's metaking the whole inyan to you with the bit. So we have to say that there's two amazing inyanim here. That the inyan from Shema, mitzad echad, it's got itself the bittul of the earl of Neatzim, eino id muvadi lo yadem miklum, v'go lo ma'anyen oto klum. What is the, and that was in a way to you. And it was a man, I looked up something the other day in the Tzemel Tzedek, and I saw it. Occasionally you see these inyanim, that he says, why did that year that he came to Hillel Azokin, he said, Tilamdeni Scholar Tera Kulsh, and he aimed al Regel Achas. Why did he say Regel Achas? Just say Tilamdeni Scholar Tera Kulsh. In a few minutes, I'm busy. Why did Shani Yom? So he said that the inyan from Toyu is Regel Achas. Agoy b'fnei agiyu is he seen from oiras to Toyu. So he said by him it's a from oimed al regel achas. Everything just stands on one. It's all sort of wobbling on one foot. It's like it collapse, and ultimately it does. And Hillel wanted to save him, and Hillel said to listen here, you got to have a after l'reach lead the Alter Rebbe in Perek Lamed Beis. In other words, that the whole way out of all that is only to be connected with another person. And you are doing great things, and you're a very elevated person, otherwise you wouldn't be here dragging back up. Or you're in Olam HaToyu. And Olam HaToyu is 1 foot, and it's all for Ziach. It's very high in Yonim, or you're interested in, you got to go and forget yourself altogether, think about the other person. Oh, that was just, then you'll know what it means to you. Yeah, it was just almost shmaktabik, what it means. And then you'll know what is tikkun. Ma has got the beide Sachen. Ma is not just regel achas. It's not just the Shlefnei HaTzimtzum. It's got that bittul in. But it's hard to, what do we need as our bittul for? We don't need as our bittul for Ziyach. We need that bittul to go down into the Elam and Mach, a mensch from the world. That's Ma. Then we're going to see that Ma is the pnimis of the Kaaba, and it's the answer to Toihu. I look at it's exactly the same gilifin for the Shlefnei HaTzimtzum. What is that bottle? It doesn't know of anything. It's all everything. No? It's got that bittul, but it's using that bittul to bring to the ultimate kalam.
What on bittul in Torah?
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly
like but in Torah, the bittul in Torah was too big. Too much bittul. Too much bittul. No, was then. God, that wasn't the problem. It's bittul only for the sake of bittul. The Bnei Aaron, Ma Ta'omeli about the Bnei Aaron, Ma Pirush about Bnei Aaron.
Esau
they were bittul for the sake of bittul. They wanted to be bottled. They wanted to be bottled. They have the was with God. They knew bottle. Shema says to you, all that, Mamish Akko, or we use it to make the world bottle. Use it to make the world a place.
Where do you see bittul ba'esav? Bittul ba'esav?
Bittul ba'esav? Yeah. Eventually you have bittul ba'esav. The whole trouble with the Esau was bittul. It's a very high bittul. That's what the Esau saw in it. That's what Yitzchak saw in Esau. But it was all fazir. It was all fazir. That's why what happened to it. Halitainim. You understand? It was all fuzzy. It was all fuzzy. The Rebbe said that was him. The Rebbe said that was once upon a time. And now he said if you would have talked to Esau the Emerson way, he would listen to you. Because he knows now what is the Olam Kavanah. Kommen again the Olam Shagoyim. We know who they are. And they verdream pink fakir. They verdream pink the fakir. And the world is in such a terrible matter. Because nobody wants to listen to Melech HaMashiach. And what happens is they come back to what Melech HaMashiach. Look at this whole business with me Yehudi, you know. Every now and then in the whole Haredi press, you see what they say, yeah, me Yehudi, come on. The Rebbe was married for years and years ago. The Rebbe told him. Now they see what's a heres to see. And the Rebbe told them about the because they're going to have to wake up. but they're going to wake up too late.
I didn't want to say this. Where
They're going to wake
I
up.
didn't want to say this. Where you went from?
So we're going to the Gula Shleima. We don't have to worry about them anymore because we're going to the Gula Shleima. Take them yard, mommy. Oi. That's what we're going to learn in the next couple of chapters.
Stay tuned.
The Shema's got both. He's got the bittel of Oreches. Or we use that bittel for purpose.